Our guest today is Elizabeth Buko, a 33-year-old British-Nigerian author and financial coach. She helps women recover from debt, improve their finances, build wealth, and all of this are based on faith-filled principles. She will reveal some of her childhood experiences which left an impact on her.
In the middle of the night, God said to me, like, what is it that you like? What is it?
As well as how from one phone call losing everything meant that it became a stepping stone for her to create a new career path.
And people said to me, start asking me, how are you surviving? How is your family surviving? I really felt that that would lead to me losing my marriage. Growing up, I always knew that that I wanted to be comfortable, and beyond comfortable, I wanted to be beyond comfortable, right? So my mom was very hardworking. She had several obstacles in her life in which she has overcome, and she modeled that consistently. And my grandmother is one of the smartest women I know. Well, she's late now, but she was one of the smartest women I knew at that time. I lived with my grandmother when I was younger, but she was so intelligent. My grandmother retired at the age of 42. But before that, she studied nursing. She got a scholarship to come here to study nursing. She went on to work for the WHO. Then she came back to Nigeria, where she was the first nurse tutor. And then she continued to consistently break boundaries in her time. She traveled to like 32 countries. She spoke different, well, not fluently, but she knew how to speak different languages. She really pushed herself. So even though I was born at a time where, my mother was now hustling and doing all that work, I still had her consistent eye on every single thing that I was doing. And she continually pushed me to do the little things excellently. Growing up, my mother had always said, she used to sing this nursery rhyme that translates to, if you work hard, you'll walk in hills, which was the equivalent of, if you work hard, you'll have a great job, you'll make a lot of money. And this was the desire. I wanted to make a lot of money. So fast forward the years, went to university, got a job in engineering, was working as a chemical engineer, and my career started to gain momentum, and it was getting pretty good. And all of a sudden, the company faced some financial challenges that meant that they had to restructure it, and some of us were let go, including myself. And that was kind of what led to me all of a sudden losing the job and being at home for a while, wondering deep down, like, what exactly am I supposed to do next? I could have gotten another job, which it was obviously the clear option one, but deep down I knew that wasn't the path for me. I knew that my previous job wasn't fulfilling per se. The money was good, but my soul wasn't being fulfilled. And I got into the path to entrepreneurship, which is what I'm doing now. In Wealth from Little, we help women change the way they think about money so that they can start building wealth. The moment that I knew Wealth from Little was going to be born was after the redundancy, after I lost my job. Up until that point, I had been trying to build wealth. I had been trying different things. I've been trying to learn how to invest in stocks. I knew that there was something that people did that ensured that they never had to worry about money or never had to worry where their income was going to come from. But I wasn't exactly sure how that thing manifested into financial freedom. So I was working through all this, and while I was working, I went to see someone in the bank near my office, I made an appointment and I spoke to the gentleman, the bank worker, and I explained to him my vision for my future, which was to build wealth, to be able to buy a home, to be able to enjoy life, to be able to retire easily and comfortably. And he said what I was doing was fine. And what I was doing at that point was literally just saving. I had tried investing before, I had gotten burned. And so I had paused on that and I just said, okay, let me stick to what I know. So I just said, I'll just going to save and just keep money in the bank. And he said I should just keep doing that. And so that gave my ego a big pat. However, fast forward about 4 years later when I lost the job, it was a big jolt that wasn't what I needed to do, because now that I have no income, there was nothing to save. And so I knew that this was not the way that people, are able to live worry-free, not worrying about money, stress-free without thinking about money. At the same time, that the losing of the job was when I was actually 7 months pregnant. So it was a bit hard because I know nobody's going to hire a person who's about to go on maternity anyway. And so started the maternity leave and was a bit wondering, like, okay, God, what's the plan? Where does this go from here? One thing that pushed us through the maternity was me and my husband, we had this great saving habit. We had been living on one income for about 3 years already, even though we were having two incomes coming into the family. And so because we had this great savings habit, by the time the job got taken away and we were now down to really one income, we had some stash of savings kept aside, and we also our lifestyle wasn't really drastically cut because we were already living on one income. So it was exactly it was life as usual. So God really helped us in that area. And then during my time of wondering in terms of where who exactly am I, that really affected me mentally, because I was really losing. I wasn't sure who I was. What was my identity? Like, who are you, Elizabeth Buko? Okay, for a long time when people ask me, oh, nice to meet you, the next thing is always, what do you do? So that identity had always been around what I did. And then now it was like I wasn't doing anything. And the not doing anything for me was equated to a feeling of loss. It was like I had lost something. And that feeling of loss made me scared that I was going to lose even more. And so and so that identity of loss was really deeply rooted in me. And I felt crazy enough that because I had lost my job and now I was losing who exactly I was and the confidence I had in myself, I really felt that would lead to me losing my marriage. And so that really scared me. And as I was feeling scared, it made me almost kind of mentally try and isolate myself. I wasn't really sharing how I was feeling about it. And one night while I was downstairs in the living room, God spoke to me, and he said to me, and this had been after probably 12 months of consistently coming down in the middle of the night to study and to pray. And what was I studying? I was studying about anything to find out who I was and what my calling was. I was actively looking in the Word of God, and I was actively reading textbooks and books by authors about purpose and calling, and trying to actually study to find out what exactly was God calling me to. And that night, about 12 months later after this, in the middle of the night, God said to me, what is it that you like? What is it that you actually like? And I remember that conversation so clearly, because I said to him that I like money. That's it. Just give me money. And he said, okay, how can you use that to bring me glory? And I said, if you give me money, I'll pay my tithes and I'll donate some to the church, and that will bring you glory. The end. And I was expecting another comment back. Nothing. I had nothing else. And every night I'll come back to that same position, trying to hear at the same time, trying to hear from God again, thinking, okay, let's finish this conversation. And nothing came after that. And so I kept on thinking about it, like, oh, so how will I bring God glory? I'm asking him for money, and he's asking me, how will I bring him glory with this money? And I was just like, but I can't give God glory unless I have the money, right? I need the money, and then you pay your tithes. You need the money, you pay your offering. And then maybe about 2 weeks later, I started getting calls and from people, from friends, from family, and they would ask me, oh, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm fine. I'm a bit tired, but I'm fine. I had a baby, my child was almost a year old at that time. And people started asking me, how are you surviving? You've lost your job, you're on one income. How is your family surviving? I'm like, what do you mean? So they start asking me how I'm doing, how I'm able to do the things that I'm doing. And so I started telling them, oh, well, we've been saving. Like, we saved 90% of my paycheck for like over 3 years. And so it wasn't, and they're like, how can you save 90% of your paycheck? And so I explained it, and they're like, oh, but you still go on holidays. I said, yeah. Like, how can you afford that? And so I explained it. And I started explaining how I started saving, but it wasn't that much. And then each month I pushed myself to save a little bit more. I started explaining how I used high interest savings accounts to, put some money aside so that it would get a huge, the interest will grow then when interest rates were a bit better. And then that was what we used for holidays. I started explaining how we were able to buy our first house, our first home, and furnish it. And I also explained how we were just able to live and not suffer, even though I had no job eventually. And then it clicked, and this was not the same conversation, it was multiple conversations with different people. And then it clicked, it said, oh my gosh, this is how I could give God glory. Like, if I share my experience with other people, they might be able to, steward their money better and, bring glory to God through that. And literally, that was how the first shell of Wealth from Little was formed. And it was my husband who helped with the title, because he said, you're really rebuilding your wealth again from little.